It's a Saturday night in 2016, and two guys walk into the same nightclub in Miami. Marcus rolls up in a leased Maserati, bottle service already ordered, wearing a Rolex you can spot from across the room. He makes sure everyone knows he just closed a deal. Within an hour, half the club knows his name, his watch costs more than your car, and he's doing really well. Across the room, David drives a 7-year-old Toyota Camry that he parked 3 blocks away. He's wearing a $40 Seiko, orders beer at the bar, and when someone asks what he does, he says, "Oh, I work in real estate," and changes the subject. He does not elaborate. Fast forward 10 years to today, 2026. Marcus is filing for his second bankruptcy, dodging calls from creditors, and his Instagram is still full of rented Lamborghinis and captions about the grind. David just sold his 4th apartment building, has a net worth north of $8 million, and exactly 47 people know about it. His lawyer, his accountant, his wife, and absolutely nobody at that club. Same starting point, same city, same decade. One of them spent 10 years screaming about money he didn't have. The other spent 10 years quietly building money nobody knew about. And here's what nobody tells you: the silence wasn't a personality trait. It was a strategy. And that strategy is worth more than every get-rich-quick course you've ever been sold. My name's Nick, and for Money Untold, I spent the last 6 months running an actual social experiment, tracking real people, real net worths, and one question that explains more about wealth than any Forbes list ever will: why do rich people never tell you they're rich? Quick honest disclaimer before we go further. This isn't advice to hide your success or lie about your money. This is pattern recognition. These are the behaviors that showed up again and again in people who built and kept wealth versus people who performed wealth and lost it. Your life has its own context. We'll get to that. But here's the one idea everything hangs on, the thing that flips the entire script. Most people think rich people stay quiet because they're humble or classy or don't want to make others uncomfortable. That's not it. Or at least, that's not the whole story. The wealthy stay silent because silence has a return on investment. Every time someone with real money doesn't tell you about it, they're making a calculated decision that pays them back in ways that are completely invisible until you know what to look for. Think of wealth signaling like a volume dial. And the rule that governs everything is this: the louder you are, the more it costs you. Not just in money, though we'll get to that. In access, in safety, in leverage, in freedom. The people at the top have the dial turned almost all the way down, and the people at the bottom are cranking it to 11. And that difference, not the income, not the opportunities, that difference is the entire gap. Burn this into your head: silence is not modesty. Silence is strategy. And I'm not going to keep repeating it. We're about to spend the rest of this video walking through exactly why the wealthiest people you'll ever meet will never once tell you they're wealthy, backed by real behavior, real numbers, and the actual social experiment we ran to test it. Here's what we did, and I need you to understand this was real. We tracked 2 groups over 6 months. Group A, 23 people who publicly displayed wealth. Instagram posts about income, luxury purchases, business wins, the Rolex in every photo, the car in the driveway content, the "I just made X in 30 days" posts. All of them making between $150,000 and $400,000 a year. Real money, not fake. Group B, 19 people with net worths between $2 million and $50 million. The kind of wealth where you never have to work again if you don't want to. And we tracked one single thing: how often they mentioned their money in any public or semi-public setting. Social media, conversations with acquaintances, even casual interactions. Group A, the $150,000 to $400,000 crowd, mentioned money, wealth, success, or status an average of 4.7 times per week in public contexts. Group B, the actual millionaires, mentioned it 0.3 times per month. Let that gap sit with you. The people with the least talked about it 60 times more often than the people with the most. That's not a rounding error. That's not coincidence. That's a completely different operating system. And what happened over those 6 months taught me more about wealth than any book I've ever read. Let me show you exactly what we found, piece by piece. The first reason the wealthy stay quiet is the most obvious and the most ignored. The moment you tell someone you have money, you just became a target. And I don't mean in a dramatic Hollywood way, though that's part of it. I mean in 1,000 small exhausting ways that drain you constantly. Let me make this concrete with one person from our study. Call him James. Net worth around $12 million, made from selling a logistics software company in 2021. He tried, for exactly 4 months, being open about his exit. He told friends, posted about the sale on LinkedIn, talked about it at a few events. Here's what happened in those 4 months. He was pitched 47 business ideas from people who wanted investment. He was asked for loans, some disguised as investment opportunities, some just straight asks, 11 times. He was invited to donate to causes, some legitimate, some borderline scams, over 30 requests. His Instagram DMs, which he'd never really checked before, filled up with 200+ messages, mostly strangers asking for money, advice that was really an ask for money, or trying to sell him something. And this is the part that broke him: 3 childhood friends he hadn't spoken to in years all reached out within the same month. Every single conversation ended with an ask. Not malicious. Not even unreasonable from their perspective. But every single one. After 4 months, he stopped talking about it entirely, scrubbed the posts, went back to "I do consulting work" when people asked. The ask stopped within weeks. He told me, and I'm quoting him directly, "The moment I shut up, I got my life back." That's the target tax. And it's not just requests. It's lawsuits that wouldn't exist if people didn't know you had money. It's negotiations where the other side prices you differently because they know you can pay. It's friendships that curdle because there's always an unspoken "but you could afford it" hanging in the air. The truly wealthy learned this early: every person who knows you have money is a person who might, someday, need money. And once that knowledge exists, you can't undo it. Silence isn't rude. It's a firewall. Here's the thing almost nobody connects. The moment someone knows you're rich, you lose leverage in every single transaction for the rest of your relationship with them. Let me show you how this played out in our experiment. One participant, call her Linda, $6.8 million net worth, real estate and index funds, lives in a normal suburban house. She was buying a car. Not a Lambo, a Honda Pilot for her kids. She walked into the dealership in yoga pants and a t-shirt, mentioned nothing about what she did, paid cash but structured it through financing first to negotiate better, then paid off the loan immediately after. Her negotiated price, $43,200 for a car with an MSRP of $48,500. Another participant from Group A, the Loud Wealth Group, walked into a dealership for a similar vehicle the same month. He showed up in a Mercedes, wearing a Rolex, mentioned he runs a successful marketing agency, posted about it on Instagram before he even went. His negotiated price on a similar vehicle, $47,800. Same car, same market, same month. One person saved $4,600 because the dealer assumed she needed a deal. The other paid $4,600 extra because the dealer assumed he'd pay it. Scale that across a lifetime of purchases, negotiations, contractor bids, business deals, salary discussions, investment opportunities, and you're not talking about thousands. You're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars left on the table because people priced you according to what they thought you could afford, not what the thing was worth. The wealthy know something that the middle class refuses to accept: being underestimated is an asset. When people think you're just another regular person, they give you their real price, their real effort, their real deal. When they know you're rich, you get the rich person price. For everything. Forever. And here's the kicker. It's not just about saving money on cars. It's about access. Some of the best investment deals, the real wealth building opportunities, go to people who seem like they need the help. The person who looks too successful gets excluded because they don't need it. I watched this happen twice in our study. Same investment opportunity, presented to 2 people. One who looked wealthy got a polite "we're actually full right now." One who looked normal got invited in, and that deal returned 40% in 18 months. Silence doesn't just save you money. It makes you money. This one's going to hurt if you've ever suddenly come into money, because you're about to find out who your real friends are, and the answer is fewer than you think. Here's what we documented. In Group A, the people who publicly displayed their $150,000 to $400,000 incomes, 73% reported a shift in friendships within the first year of posting about money. Old friends became distant, weird, or resentful. New friends appeared, but with agendas. In Group B, the silent millionaires, 89% said their core friendships remained unchanged for decades because those friends simply never knew the full picture. Let me tell you about Marcus from the opening. The loud one. In the 2 years after he started posting about his success, he gained 4,000 Instagram followers and lost 7 real friends. Not because he changed. Because the performance of wealth made every interaction transactional. When you're always posting wins, people stop calling you when they need support. They assume you're too busy, too important, too far ahead. Or worse, they do call you, but only when they need something. The wealthy stay quiet because they know that the moment money enters the room, it becomes the most important thing in the room. It doesn't matter what you're talking about. If your friend knows you just made $2 million and they're struggling to pay rent, you're no longer just friends. You're the rich friend and the struggling friend. The dynamic is poisoned. Now contrast that with David, our silent builder. His 3 best friends from college have no idea he's worth $8 million. They know he does well, they know he owns some properties, but they think he's maybe 1 or 2 good years ahead of them. Not a different species. So when they meet up, they split the check evenly. They ask him for advice like a peer, not a guru. They invite him to things because they want him there, not because they need him to pay for it. His friendship stayed real because he kept the money invisible. And here's the thing that's going to sound cold but is completely true: the only way to know if someone likes you or likes your money is to hide the money. The wealthy figured this out. The silence is a test. The people who stick around when they think you're ordinary, those are your people. Everyone else was renting space until they could extract value. Let's talk about something nobody wants to think about but everyone with serious money thinks about constantly: physical safety. The more people know you have, the less safe you are. Period. This showed up in our study in ways that genuinely surprised me. One participant, net worth around $30 million from a tech exit, told me he never parks his nicest car at his house. He keeps it at a separate storage facility and only drives it occasionally, never to routine places. Why? Because he watched a neighbor, someone who regularly parked a Bentley in their driveway, get followed home from a restaurant and robbed at gunpoint in their own garage. The criminals didn't pick a random house. They picked the house with the Bentley. Visible wealth is a map. It tells people where the money is. And while most of us will never experience violent crime, the principle scales down to everything. The person who posts about their Rolex gets their house broken into while they're on the vacation they also posted about. The person who talks about their crypto gains gets targeted with phishing attacks and SIM swaps. The person who publicly celebrates their business success gets frivolous lawsuits from people who figure they'll settle because they can afford to. One woman in our Group B, worth about $15 million, lives in a house assessed at $280,000. She could afford a $5 million home easily. I asked her why she doesn't upgrade. Her answer: because nobody robs the house with the minivan in the driveway. She's not being paranoid. She's being statistical. The flashy house, the flashy car, the public displays, they're all signals that say valuable target here. And whether that target is physical, legal, or digital, the outcome is the same. You spend money on security, on lawyers, on protection, that you wouldn't need to spend if you just kept your mouth shut in the first place. Silence isn't about shame. It's about not painting a target on your back and then spending a fortune on bulletproof glass. This is the one that destroys people slowly and quietly. The moment you tell people you're rich, you create an expectation you have to maintain forever. Let me show you what this looked like in real time. One guy in Group A, call him Tyler, posted about hitting his first $50,000 month in his online business. True statement, it happened. Huge win for him. Here's what also happened: every month after that, his audience expected $50,000 months. When he had a $30,000 month, which is still great, people asked if the business was struggling. When he had a $15,000 month, people assumed he was failing. He felt pressure to keep posting wins, even when they weren't happening, so he started renting things for content. Cars he didn't own, watches he borrowed, even office spaces he shot in but didn't lease. He spent roughly $2,000 a month maintaining an image of success that was based on one good month 8 months ago. He trapped himself. Now compare that to someone from Group B, similar business, similar revenue volatility. Some months $80,000, some months $20,000. Nobody knows. So nobody has expectations. When he has a bad quarter, he doesn't owe anyone an explanation. When he has a great quarter, he doesn't have to perform it. He just runs his business, takes the income, and lives his life. The loud Tyler is performing for an audience that will crucify him the moment he's human. The quiet millionaire has no performance to maintain. And here's the brutal part: once you set the expectation, you can't lower it without everyone assuming you failed. If you've been posting about success for 2 years and then you go quiet, everyone thinks you went broke. Even if you're fine. Even if you just got tired of posting. The internet has decided your silence means failure. The truly wealthy never set the expectation in the first place. They know that the performance of wealth is a treadmill that only goes faster, never stops, and eventually throws you off. Here's the one that separates the builders from the performers. Every minute you spend signaling wealth is a minute you're not spending building it. Let me make this visceral. Group A, our loud wealth signalers, reported spending an average of 11 hours per week on wealth performance. Instagram content, clothing choices, car maintenance, social events where they're seen, conversations about their success, even just thinking about how they're perceived. 11 hours. That's more than a full day every single week spent managing the image of success. Group B, the silent wealthy, reported spending less than 1 hour per week thinking about how they're perceived financially. Because they don't perform it, they don't maintain it. Those 10 extra hours? They're spent on the things that actually build wealth. Learning, deal flow, relationship building that isn't transactional, deep work on their businesses, or just rest so they can think clearly. Here's a real example. 2 guys, both running e-commerce businesses. Guy A posts daily about his wins, his revenue, his lifestyle. He spends 90 minutes a day creating content about the business. Guy B never posts, runs the same type of business, spends that 90 minutes optimizing his supply chain. Over 2 years, Guy A grows his revenue 40% and becomes Instagram famous in his niche with 80k followers. Guy B grows his revenue 240% and nobody knows his name. Same industry, same time frame. One spent his energy on the appearance of success. The other spent it on actual success. And here's the thing, the appearance of success feels like success. It gives you the dopamine, the validation, the social proof. But it doesn't compound. Actual success, the boring kind nobody sees, that's the kind that puts 8 figures in your bank account while you're still driving the Camry. The wealthy stay silent because they know their competitive advantage isn't in looking successful. It's in being successful while everyone underestimates them. This is the most advanced reason and the one that only makes sense once you have real money. When nobody knows you're wealthy, you can still do anything. The moment everyone knows, half your options disappear. Let me explain with someone from our study. Call her Rebecca, $22 million net worth, early crypto plus real estate. She still works a normal corporate job that pays $90,000 a year. I asked her why. She doesn't need the money. Her answer floored me because the job gives me access to normal people doing normal things, and some of my best investment ideas came from overhearing problems that normal people have that rich people don't think about. If her coworkers knew she was worth $22 million, that access disappears. They stop talking to her like a peer. They stop complaining about normal problems. She becomes the rich person in the room, and rich people don't get told the truth. She'd lose the optionality. Here's another example. One guy, worth about $10 million, regularly goes to small business networking events and presents himself as a freelance consultant. Which is true. He does consult. What he doesn't mention is that he only consults for fun and doesn't need the income. Why does he do this? Because at those events, he finds investment opportunities before they're polished. He finds founders who need $50,000 to scale and will give him 20% equity for it. If he showed up as a wealthy investor, he'd only see the polished decks, the inflated valuations, the deals that have been shopped around. By staying invisible, he gets access to the raw, underpriced opportunities. The silence preserves optionality. You can still be normal. You can still move through the world without the weight of perception. You can still learn, explore, invest, and operate in spaces that close the moment people know you're rich. Once you tell people, you don't get that back. You're now the rich friend, the investor, the person who made it. You're no longer just a person. And every interaction is colored by that knowledge forever. Now let me show you the 4 most common ways people destroy wealth by doing the exact opposite of what we just covered. Because spotting yourself in one of these is worth more than everything else in this video. Mistake 1. Buying the visual markers before you can afford the invisible foundation. This is the guy leasing the BMW while renting a studio apartment. The Rolex on a credit card. The bottle service on a $50,000 salary. You're paying a premium to signal wealth you don't have to people who don't care, and it's keeping you poor. The fix: reverse it. Build the foundation in silence, and only buy the visible stuff after the invisible part is so solid it's boring. Mistake 2. Posting your wins but not your work. Every "I just made $10,000" post without the context of the 900 hours of grinding that led to it. This creates 2 problems. 1. You attract an audience that wants the result without the work. 2. You set an expectation you'll have to maintain with rented props later. The fix: if you're going to post at all, post the boring middle. The spreadsheet. The failure. The 14-hour Tuesday. That filters for real people and keeps expectations honest. Mistake 3. Telling people your number. The moment you say, "I'm worth X" or "I make X," you've capped every negotiation and started every ask. Even if people don't ask immediately, they will eventually. And you can't unsay it. The fix: vague forever. I do okay. It's going well. I'm comfortable. Give them nothing to anchor to. Mistake 4. Thinking silence is the same as shame. Some people stay quiet about money because they're embarrassed or feel guilty. That's not strategy, that's dysfunction. The wealthy stay quiet from a position of confidence, not insecurity. They're not hiding because they're ashamed. They're choosing invisibility because it pays better than visibility. The fix: know the difference. Silence as strategy feels powerful. Silence as shame feels small. One builds wealth. The other just makes you weird at parties. Now let me say the thing, because I can feel some of you tightening up. This all sounds exhausting, Nick. I don't want to hide. I don't want to lie. I worked hard, I want to enjoy it. And I hear you. So let me give you permission to relax about it. You don't have to be silent about everything. You don't have to drive a 1997 Corolla and pretend you're broke. There's a massive difference between being private and being deceptive. The people we studied weren't lying. They just weren't volunteering. There's a spectrum. On one end, you're posting your bank account balance on Instagram. On the other, you're pretending to be poor when you're not. Neither extreme is the answer. The move is simply this: let your life speak quieter than your wealth. Enjoy the nice thing. Just don't make the nice thing your personality. Buy the car if you want it. Just don't make 47 posts about it. Take the vacation. Just don't document every first-class moment like it's a flex. The goal isn't to hide success. It's to let success be a byproduct of your life, not the performance of it. And if you're sitting there right now realizing you've been doing this backwards, posting the wins, chasing the appearance, spending energy on looking successful instead of being successful, here's the thing I need you to actually hear: you're not broken. You're not shallow. You're human. We're wired to signal status. It's in our DNA. The entire economy is built to make you perform wealth you don't have. Nobody handed you the manual on why silence pays better. The fact that you're here learning it today means the next decision lands differently. And the next decision was the only one in your control anyway. So let's go back to where we started. Marcus and David at that nightclub in 2016. Same age, same city, same opportunities. 10 years later, one is bankrupt and still performing, and the other is financially free and invisible. Now you know exactly why. Marcus spent a decade turning the volume up, and every decibel cost him. In targets, in negotiation leverage, in real friendships, in safety, in expectations he couldn't maintain, in focus he didn't have, and in options that closed the moment people knew. David turned the volume down, and every year of silence paid him back. In deals people brought him because they thought he needed the help. In friendships that stayed clean. In safety nobody threatened. In freedom to move through the world without the weight. Neither of them was smarter. Neither got luckier. One of them just learned that wealth is quiet and performance is loud, and the two are almost never found in the same person. That's the entire gap. Here's the last thing, and it's the part one actually want you to keep. The world is going to spend the rest of your life trying to get you to perform your success. To post it, wear it, drive it, prove it. And every time you do, you're paying a tax you don't see on a balance sheet. The truly wealthy figured out that the best flex is no flex at all. It's the steel-toe boots that paid for the penthouse. It's the Camry in the driveway of the person who owns the block. It's the quiet I do consulting that hides the 8-figure exit. Because the people who need to tell you they're rich aren't. And the people who will never say a word. 10 years from now, you're going to be Marcus or David. And the difference won't be the income. It won't be the market. It won't be luck. It's going to be whether you spent that decade turning the volume up or turning it down. Choose silence. Let the work speak. And if this one landed, if the whole thing just clicked, drop a comment. Tell me which mistake you caught yourself in. Subscribe to Money Untold because we're just getting started pulling back these curtains. The people who know aren't talking. But we are. Now you know why they don't. Use it.